I am 47 and my wife Jenna is 43. We were married for 9 years. Not too long ago, I thought I had it all. A job I loved, a snug little house, and a wife who was my everything. Jenna and I were inseparable ever since high school, always by each other's side. Every memory I held dear had her laugh, her wit, her unwavering support. That's why when our world started crumbling, it hit me hard. One day, I came home late from work. "Kevin, you're late again." Jenna's frosty voice brought me back to reality as I stepped through our front door one evening. This wasn't the Jenna I knew, the woman who'd laugh and say, "Better late than never." She was changing, and it scared me. I offered an apologetic smile. "Work, Jenna, you know how it is. That's always the excuse, isn't it?" She left me standing there, the silence echoing between us. I spent the next few days walking on eggshells, trying to figure out what was wrong. The Jenna I knew seemed lost, replaced by this cold stranger. I tried to reach out to her, plan picnics at our favorite park, cook her favorite lasagna, surprise her with daisies, her favorite. It seemed no matter what I did, she didn't respond to it, like she just didn't give a damn. I didn't know what was happening, not yet. It's funny how suspicion can creep in and taint everything. My perfect world was not so perfect anymore, and it was only a matter of time before everything came crashing down. As the days turned into weeks, I noticed more changes. Late nights at work, sudden weekend plans, and she wasn't communicating like she used to. Was it me, or was Jenna trying to avoid me? This wasn't the woman I married. The sinking feeling in my stomach told me something was wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on it. The sweet bliss of ignorance was wearing off, and I really didn't know what was happening. Jenna began spending more time away from home, coming back really late at night, something she had never done. She always had a ready excuse. I was with Mary from work, or there was a late meeting. The threads of doubt began to have frequent spots in my mind. The suspicion was growing, fed by every late night and unexplained absence. One evening, my worry got the best of me. It was past midnight and Jenna hadn't returned. Working late, she texted me hours ago. A chilling thought came to mind, and against my better judgment, I dialed Mary's number. We'd met a few times, and she seemed nice enough. "Kevin," Mary's voice broke the silence of the night. "Jenna, she left at 5, said she had plans." My heart sank. I muttered a quick thanks and ended the call. My mind started racing. If she wasn't at work, where was Jenna? Jenna got home late. We had a heated discussion. Then we went to bed angry at each other. The next morning, while Jenna was in the shower, I saw a crumpled receipt poking out from her coat pocket. My hand shook as I unfolded a slip of paper. It was from an upscale restaurant downtown, a place we talk about, but never visited due to the hefty prices. 2 main courses, 2 desserts, a bottle of wine. It was clear it was not a solitary dinner. She had been on a date, and it wasn't with me. Confronting Jenna didn't seem like the best idea. Not yet. I needed more evidence, more than just a receipt and Mary's word. I took the receipt back into her coat and went about the day as if nothing happened. Inside, however, I was a wreck. The woman I loved, the woman I married, was slipping away from me into the arms of another man. My once blissful life was now colored with doubt and suspicion. As days turned into nights and weeks into months, I found myself in a horrible situation. The crumbling of our relationship seemed inevitable, and I didn't know if I had the strength to help mend it back together. My days went by fast, and they were filled with hollow conversations. I kept my discovery of the dinner receipt a secret, quietly observing Jenna's actions and her growing distance. The truth was a bitter pill to swallow, and denial was my only refuge. That is, until I could deny it no longer. One morning, I decided to broach the subject. "Jenna, I found the receipt in your pocket from the restaurant." Her eyes widened for a brief moment before she regained her composure. "Oh, that," she replied nonchalantly. "It was a business dinner, Kevin." I wanted to believe her. Oh, how I wished her words could erase my doubts and take us back to our happier times. But with their slight hesitation, told a different story. Despite my best efforts, I couldn't shake off my suspicions. I spent my nights tossing and turning, haunted by the thought of Jenna laughing and dining with another man. I wrestled with my thoughts, torn between confronting her with my growing suspicions and clinging to the fragments of our once blissful marriage. Weeks went by, each day a painful reminder of the growing distance between us. My heart yearned for the woman I had fallen in love with, but all I saw was a stranger wearing Jenna's face. The trust that once was the foundation of our relationship had been shattered. Each passing day brought with it new doubts and fears, each more crippling than the last. I was living with a stranger, a painful ghost of the woman I had loved with all my heart. I knew what I had to do. No more playing the fool, no more waiting for answers to fall into my lap. It was time to seek out the truth myself, regardless of how painful it might be. I turned to my computer and started scouring for evidence, a cold determination fueling me. I dug into Jenna's online presence. I scanned her social media profiles, her frequent contacts, anything that could give me a clue about who she was spending her time with. Late into the night, while Jenna lay sleeping, oblivious to my turmoil, I discovered something. It was a picture of Jenna at a party, looking radiant in a little black dress. But what caught my attention was the man next to her, his arms slung casually around her waist. Richard, her boss. A chill ran down my spine. Could he be the one? My heart started pounding as I clicked on his profile. His pictures were full of fancy dinners, luxury vacations, and beautiful women. And among them was Jenna, looking more vibrant and happier than she had in months. Seeing them together, laughing, and enjoying each other was heartbreaking. The reality of Jenna's betrayal was beginning to take form. The evidence was piling up and the truth was hard to ignore. Jenna was having an affair and the man was none other than her charming, charismatic boss. The initial shock gave way to a resolve to confront Jenna, to expose the scandalous affair for what it was. My love for Jenna had been real, deep and absolute, but her betrayal was a harsh reality I couldn't ignore. I stared at the man who was causing a rift in my marriage, a storm in my life, Richard. He was the reason behind my sleepless nights, my unending worries, my crumbling world. And he was about to find out that I wasn't someone to be trifled with. Jenna's affair was a wound that cut deep, but I refused to let it bleed me out. I had the truth on my side and I was determined to expose it. But how? I started thinking about my options. I could confront Jenna immediately, but she might deny it or play the victim. I needed a solid plan, one that would force Jenna and Richard to face their transgression in undeniable clarity. For that, I needed an ally, someone trustworthy who could help me see this through. Sharon, my best friend and confidant, was the first person who came to mind. She was someone who had seen Jenna and me through our best and worst. If there was anyone who could understand my predicament, it was her. The next day I called Sharon and explained everything. The late-night dinners, the social media pictures, Jenna's lies. To say she was shocked would be an understatement. Yet, amidst her shock and disbelief, Sharon offered her unwavering support. "We need evidence, Kevin," she said, "hard, undeniable evidence," and so we started planning. I felt a glimmer of hope for the first time in weeks. We decided to hire a private investigator to track Jenna's movements. We needed pictures, dates, proof of her infidelity. The thought of spying on my wife made me feel a little guilty, but the need for justice was stronger. This wasn't just about my broken heart, it was about exposing the truth. Days turned into nights as report over reports from the investigator pieced together evidence and plotted our next move. The process was draining, but the hope of exposing Jenna's scandalous affair kept me going. A plan was taking shape, a grand confrontation that would bring Jenna's deceit to light. It would be a painful spectacle, but I think it will all be worth it. As days passed, our private investigator came back with more and more evidence. Pictures of Jenna and Richard laughing at a coffee shop, walking in the park arm in arm, and dining at various restaurants. One evening, Sharon and I were poring over the latest batch of photos when I saw something that made my heart lurch. It was a picture of Jenna and Richard at the county fair, the same one she had told me she was attending with her girlfriend Kevin. Sharon's gentle voice pulled me out of my thoughts. "We have enough evidence. It's time we confronted them." She was right. It was time to confront Jenna and Richard, to expose their scandalous affair. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about getting closure and making sure they faced the consequences of their deceit. We decided to invite Jenna and Richard to a dinner under the guise of a potential business collaboration between Richard's company and the one I worked for. It was risky, but it provided the perfect setup for our confrontation. They would be trapped in their own web of lies. The day of the dinner, I couldn't help but feel a strange sense of anticipation mixed with dread. I was about to expose the woman I loved, to shatter the illusion of our perfect life together. The deceit, the pain, and the betrayal had led me to this moment. I was no longer the clueless husband. I was a man seeking justice. Jenna's scandalous affair had pushed me into the darkest corners of despair, but I had found my way out. I was ready to confront the storm, to face Jenna and Richard and expose their lies. As I walked into the upscale restaurant, the weight of my discovery felt both heavy and liberating. Jenna and Richard were already seated. I joined them with a forced smile, hiding my turmoil under a facade of friendliness. Throughout the dinner, I watched them, observing their interactions. Seeing it all unfold before my eyes was a grim confirmation of what I had known for weeks. Finally, as a dessert was served, I decided it was time. "There's a reason I invited you both here tonight," I began, "and it isn't business." Jenna looked puzzled, while Richard simply raised an eyebrow in curiosity. Taking a deep breath, I pushed the envelope across the table, an envelope containing pictures of their secret rendezvous, proof of their lies. "I believe this belongs to you," I said, locking eyes with Jenna. Richard stiffened next to her, his charming smile replaced by a look of surprise. Their secret was out in the open, their scandalous affair laid bare before them to see. I watched as Jenna looked at me, her eyes filled with guilt and shock. Richard, on the other hand, was silent, his confident demeanor crumbling under the weight of his deceit. The silence that filled the room was deafening, filled with unspoken apologies and undeniable truth. "I loved you, Jenna. I deserved better than this." The confrontation was every bit as heartbreaking as I had imagined. The truth was out. The scandalous affair exposed. Jenna and Richard were no longer just characters in my tale of heartbreak. They were the villains who had broken the trust and love that once bound us together. Jenna's scandalous affair had shattered my world, but it had also given me strength to rebuild it. After the confrontation, a heavy silence hung in the air that night. I left Jenna at the restaurant, unable to bear the sight of her. The following days were a blur of lawyers, divorce papers, and endless explanations. Not going to lie, it was painful. I couldn't allow Jenna's betrayal to control my life anymore. Friends and family rallied around me. My stalwart ally was there every step of the way. Her friendship was a welcome distraction amidst the turmoil. The long conversations with her, discussions about everything but Jenna and the scandalous affair. One afternoon, I received a call from Richard's wife, Samantha. The news of her husband's affair had reached her too. She was devastated, but thanked me for uncovering the truth. Over the following weeks, I slowly began to put the pieces of my life back together. I focused on my work, my friendships, and above all, healing. I redecorated, changing things that reminded me of Jenna. It was a small step towards healing, a way of reclaiming my space. Shortly after that confrontation, Jenna moved out. I had already filed for divorce, and we were just waiting for her to be served in the upcoming court date. Jenna had moved back in with her parents. Her parents were wealthy, and they had planned to help her find a place. At the divorce hearing, Jenna didn't even show up. She didn't get any alimony. She didn't have anything left at the house, and I was granted the divorce by default. Richard, my ex-wife's AP. His wife cleaned him out. She was a stay-at-home mom. She got everything: the house, one of the cars, alimony, and child support. His wife called and told me Richard was not fired, but he received a reprimand, and my ex-wife was moved to another department. Jenna has never tried to contact me after the divorce. As far as I'm concerned, she is dead to me.